Enhancing visibility, voice, and workplace inclusivity. So I thought I'd start off with a beautiful quotation by Confucius. By 3 methods we learn. We may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. And these are just a couple of definitions that I thought I'd start off with so that we know more or less what it is that I'm talking about. Our first definition by Boat et al. Says that it is defined as those activities in which individuals engage to explore their experiences. Moon explains it as a form of mental processing to achieve a specific outcome. And Siebert and Nordland says it uses a range of verbs such as taking, bringing, filtering, examining, making sense of things, right, in order to describe our process. So really, I became interested in this topic. I think Professor Armand Dam said there, I'm from Grassy Park. And when I lived in Grassy Park, it was very nice and it was very peaceful, but there was also a lot of socio-economic activities, factors that were influencing our safety in the community, and also having a background of violence, domestic violence and abuse, and as well as a lot of other things that happen as you go up as a human being. Losing a sister during gender-based violence awareness period is something that our family had to grapple with over the years, and also having to grow up as an adult now after you endure certain traumatic experiences. And I found that when I was at the workplace, something happened, a critical incident, but something came up for me. And I thought, hey man, I thought I dealt with this thing already. I thought I'd been through all the sessions. I thought we spoke about this, and now we're coming back. And I was so frustrated with myself because I thought I had dealt with this. And it came to mind that, you've got to just keep thinking, and you've got to keep revisiting, you've got to keep going back. Because sometimes some things just need a little bit more time. It needs a lot more working through. So I, of course, became very interested in this concept of critical self-reflection, given the situation that happened at work. And I then went through this process and I started reading up on it, seeing that it is a vital component for leadership development and also for my development in the workplace. It's really an experience where you question your way of thinking, you identify your vital signs, and you arrive at new ways of thinking. I started doing some readings, and just a couple of things came up from the literature. It's a process. Yes, it's not a once-off thing that happened that time a couple of years ago, but it's an ongoing process. It involves contemplating experiences, new ways of thinking. Also, it helps you to understand your capabilities as a leader. It's an essential part of everyday learning in leadership processes. It enables deep levels of self-awareness, and it helps you to better understand yourself. It helps you to better understand your colleagues, your managers, those people that you work with every day. And it also encourages our leaders to challenge existing perspectives and ways of working in a supportive manner. So, the significance and importance of critical self-reflection are emphasized as requirements for leaders in organizations. It is important for our leaders who manage us to be aware of how they are thinking and that they are revisiting their way of engaging with colleagues, etc. However, critical self-reflection is argued to need more attention in the workplace, but is generally not welcomed. It is also a very difficult, intricate process, difficult for many individuals and also complex, often ignored and unwanted and considered risky for practitioners. Time for critical self-reflection is often lacking or non-existent in the workspace, And opportunities are limited because not everybody necessarily wants to embrace that. So most of the research that I looked at in terms of experiences was situated in the health sciences and in education, but there are very little experiences that we can learn from within the workspace. It is important because it has a significant impact on the organization. Leaders who engage critically and reflect on the experiences can use it as a learning opportunity to benefit themselves and the organization. It can benefit your team context, as well as on an individual level where you understand yourself a little better. And you can garner these insights and meaning from that. So for my study that I embarked on, I did a phenomenological study, hermeneutic of phenomenology by Martin Heidegger. His concept of being in the world is just your existence of being in the world. What is your experience? It's das Dasein, what it means to be human. And in this world, we come with our background. I come with my bias. I come with my prejudice. I cannot take that away from who I am. So when I exist in this world, I come with all that. I'm not just empty. I come with a whole lot. I can't step out of it. So it's important to understand that in this research, it was important to consider that the researcher's experiences, as well as the participant experiences, form part of constructing this meaning. I also use adult learning theory by Bota et al., returning to an experience, evaluation of feelings, etc., as well as Mizrov's disorientating dilemma and meaning making in transformation theory. This was my methodology. As I mentioned, qualitative hermeneutic phenomenological study. I used rich descriptions and textured insights regarding the phenomenon of critical self-reflection. I interviewed 20 participants across South Africa, diverse. They had to have a minimum of 3 years in leadership positions at least. The interviews, because everybody was so geographically spread, I had to use MS Teams. I also had interview notes and a research diary. I used purposive snowballing sampling technique. And this is just to give you a sense of where my participants located. Of course, I'm from Cape Town, so I know quite a bit of people in Cape Town, but of course, people recommended some of their colleagues, etc., across the province. These were the participants who were included in my study. You can see part of my study was chief executive officers, business partners, executive directors, senior managers, heads of divisions, departments, different sectors from farming, business, education, information technology, government, organizations, companies, etc. Those were my participants. Each one of those had to choose their own pseudonym to explain their experience. So I'm trying to reduce a very long thesis into just a few minutes, so I'm not going to go into detail with everything, but those were the participant pseudonyms. So people with trust your instinct, that is what he got from his experience. Someone said authenticity. This is who I am. I want to be authentic. I'm consistent. Iswilami. This is my voice. Indian female voice. We've got a Darth Vader there as well from Star Wars. And very interesting how they use these to explain the experience. So this is just a list of all my participants. These were my research questions. What are leaders' lived experiences of critical self-reflection? So most times they would share an incident that happened at work or wherever in their lives. What are the feelings that occur? What meanings are ascribed to these experiences? How does this contribute to enhancing leadership presence? And of course, this is all the questions I asked, but I'm not going to go through all of them. On my data analysis, I used Paul Ricoeur. He's a French philosopher. And it went through 3 levels of analysis, which was explanation, naive understanding, and in-depth understanding. I'm going to have to go through very quickly. On the level 1, the explanation of the text was really just looking at what people said the experiences was. So words like, terms like anxious, discomfort, stressful, unsettling. This was some of the experiences. Awkwardness. One participant admitted, I could have easily crumbled. Another reflected, I took a breather. I had to pause and consider why I had the strong reaction. So they are looking at the experiences and they are saying, this is what's happening, right? The last person says, one spoke of an out-of-body sensation, while another reported headache, stress, and an inability to sleep. On the second level, this is where I took the basic understanding and I applied the literature, I applied my pre-knowledge and my understanding. And essentially, the emergent thing that came up here was the unpredictable emotional nature of critical self-reflection. Just to give you an example, on this level, signs of distress were not isolated, but often understood through a complex interplay of workplace discrimination, cultural expectations, past life challenges, and workplace dynamics. So you'll find when things are happening in the workplace, sometimes there are other undercurrents happening and at play. A black female CEO of a skin company who reflected on the experience of ongoing anger amid the subtle yet persistent racial dynamics that shaped her leadership journey. In recounting a colleague's remark, he said, so those things still make you angry. We're different teams and people see you differently depending on their background. And she was just sharing a little bit about how there was an issue with a certain human being in the boardroom. I'm coming here, I'm a white boy, I was raised by this family. I now need to report to this black woman. So the CEO is feeling these little subtleties. Iswilami says, but I think for me, self-reflection unearthed a lot of issues and I'm having a voice and being taken seriously. Let me just move over to discipline. She was in a mining sector. She said, I'm often the only white person in meetings. Initially, some people ignore you while others make a lot of political statements. It took a lot of self-reflection. Okay, how are you going to handle it? What do I need to change from my side? So then just moving further to my next emergent theme, digging deep for growth and empowerment, critical self-reflection as developing growth and self-awareness for growth and empowerment. One person said here, one piece of feedback I've been receiving is that I'm a perfectionist. So I was wondering, maybe this is what's driving it. I started reflecting on it, and when I did, my perspective changed. And it began shifting even how I approach things. So just another concept from resilience. So I had to think about this. Why is my confidence so low? It was about unblocking this thing in my head that caused me to think, you're not good enough. And then really to keep reinforcing and to regain your confidence. So this person over here was struggling with a sense of a lack of confidence. Let me just move to the last emergent theme over here. Critical self-reflection as a tool for navigating leadership challenges more effectively. So this sub-theme highlighted its role as a coping mechanism for resilience. And it was important in building trust and credibility. So trust your instinct says, so you come almost to suppress your own emotions with that process, because if you start taking all the anxiety and panic, no one else is going to follow you. But obviously, it comes at a cost to you as well. I've got 1 minute left. And then let me just have a look over here. And then at level 3, this is where my interpretation was revised through the hermeneutic circle. My revised themes were the emotional complexity of critical self-reflection, digging deep vulnerability as a path to growth and empowerment, and then navigating and transforming challenges into meaning through critical self-reflection. And of course, this is how it fed into leadership presence. It resulted in increased awareness, regulation, vulnerability, humility, and sensitivity with staff. Leaders also experience vulnerability, and this vulnerability is demonstrated through empathy, reflection, feedback, humility, growth mindset. And then lastly, increased self-awareness through reflection on strengths, weaknesses, and core values. And then these are just a couple of recommendations for the workplaces: cultivating spaces for reflection through programs that support emotional and interpretive engagement. For leaders, just to, of course, seek relational support, mentoring and support. And then policymakers to embed these reflective practices into the organization. So I'm just going to leave it there because I see my time's up. Thank you so very much.